Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Phantasy Star Online Episode 3 Card Revolution. Now this was a game that was exclusively launched on the Nintendo GameCube, and it wasn't particularly popular back when it first released. And the main reason for that is because it made the quite strange decision to completely change how PSO played. So although it was still a Phantasy Star Online game, they actually made the decision to totally transition it into basically a collectible card game. So it had kind of mixed reviews at the time because a lot of people felt that PSO should be more of the typical action RPG like episode 1 and 2 were. And people felt it was a bit of a strange departure for the series to take. As a result, although it was online at the same time as episode 1 and 2, the servers for episode 3 really didn't last very long and it was never very popular at the time. However, looking back on it, I think it has actually held up remarkably well. And I think that anyone who missed it on the first time round, if you can grab a copy of it or even emulate a copy, assuming you've got an original copy around, if you can go back and check it somehow, it's probably worth looking into just so you can see what ideas Sega had. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the game for anyone who hasn't seen it before and just show you how it differs in gameplay from PSO episode 1 and 2. And there are a lot of differences. So we'll get straight into it. I'm going to be using my existing file for this for the simple reason that it takes far too long to get any of the decent cards otherwise, and you either stuck it in the same cards. So we'll get straight into it. So this footage, if it looks a bit blurry, it's because it is captured directly from the GameCube. So I've decided not to run an emulator for this. So this is straight from the actual GameCube I'm playing it from. So we'll just go into some free battles just so you can see how this works. So, like you'd expect, you've got your character select screen. Yeah, so as you can see there, we still have the same character classes and everything as PSO episode 1 and 2. So you can make a variety of characters. So I've got a 4-mile here. You can still see that they've still got section IDs. I've got a Raker Seal here. And then we've also got a Hugh Newell here. So it's the same character classes and everything. However, the really strange thing with episode 3 is that once you make a character, you barely ever see them. So the way episode 3 works is you make a character and they are meant to be the character that you use in the lobbies and in the main area of the game. But when you're actually in battles, in the card battles, you use predefined characters. So it was almost kind of pointless making a character, really. It was a really, really odd decision at the time. And the section IDs, from what I can tell in episode 3, have no effect whatsoever. I really don't know what they adjust, if anything. So we'll get straight into this. So it is a multiplayer game, just like episode 1 and 2. But we'll just go into a single player game for now. Little cool Easter egg, if you press buttons on the loading screen, it makes charming noises. You can also change the analog stick to change the colour as well. Similar to the telepipe thing in PSO, where you can adjust it with the, with the right stick. So this is the main area of the game, and I'll put my camera back on now. So this is the main area of the game, and this is, its name depends on what side of the story you're on. So to give a rough breakdown of how this works, essentially it's meant to take place quite a few years after PSO episode 1 and 2. And basically Pioneer have developed this new technology that allows them to use cards instead of weapons. And the cards basically allow them to use essentially portable versions of the weapons. So the idea is that a hunter would take a deck of cards with them and would then use the cards to summon things. Honestly, it does sound a little bit like Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's kind of the idea. Then what happened is a rival faction broke out called Arcs. No relation to Arcs in PSO 2, just to confuse matters. And the way they differ is the Hunter side use your typical PSO gear. So they use, Hunter, Ranger, and Force weapons. They use mags. They use armors and shields, that kind of thing. They use techniques if the forces. Whereas the Arc side, or the Dark side as they're known, they actually use creatures. So you can actually use decks that are full of monsters from PSO, which is actually a really, really cool idea. So in this main area, hopefully it doesn't look too horrendous. Like I say, this is capturing directly from the GameCube, so it probably will look a bit fuzzy. So I've got this general area here. In the story, there'd be NPCs around as well. It's just because I'm in a free battle mode that it's a little bit quieter. So if we go in here, there's a few things in here that you can do. A couple of NPCs around. And over here, you've got, there's a couple of exchange counters here. These are mainly used to trade cards between players. So PSO Episode 3 did have a trading system. And I will show you all the cards in a minute just so you can see what it involves. But the way it worked is that you could only trade certain rarities of cards, and you could only trade cards that you already had at least one copy of. So you could never get rid of the last copy of a card you had, which I always thought was a really weird decision. So essentially you had to have at least 2 of a card before you could trade one of them. Around the back here, this area is irrelevant offline. So when the game was online, this is where you would go to auction houses. So there was an auction that used to run online, and it would auction very rare cards and some cards that you couldn't get offline. And you basically used, there's a special kind of card that you could use to bid for them essentially. It was quite a strange way of doing things, but that was how you got some of the rarest cards in the game. Unfortunately, when the servers closed, those cards became completely inaccessible, and there's now actually no way of getting them. So that's what this is anyway. Yeah, it just tells you that it's a lab office when you're offline, but online that was where you would go to your auction house. But the main thing you would go to in here is there's another NPC around this way, and this is the NPC that handles your deck. So, also I feel the need to point out now that one of the highlights of episode 3 is the music. The music in this game is incredible. It's so underrated. So this is your deck. I'm just looking, I don't think my camera's blocking anything too useful. What I might just remove my camera for this section just so it doesn't block anything. So this is the deck screen, and this is where you edit your decks. So we have different characters. So if I go to make a new deck, for example, the first thing you have to choose is the character that leads your deck. So we have hero side and dark side characters, and there is one type of character. There is one character for each character class for each side. What I mean by that is, so there is a hero side Hugh Newell, which is Silpher, but then there is also a dark side Hugh Newell, who is Rufina. So there is one of those for each class. And what you can see is each character has what's called a card. And the card has different stats on it. So you have HP, which is obviously the life of the card. And the card is destroyed when it gets to 0. You have AP, which is attack power, which is how much damage it deals to other cards. TP is technique power, which is how much it deals with techniques. And MV is movement, which is how many squares on the grid it can move. And you can also cycle through the card and it'll show you a bit more information. In addition, some cards have certain abilities. So again, if we go to this guy, Kranz, who is the hero side Remar. If you look over here, he has some abilities. So he has what's called fixed range and EXP bonus. So fixed range basically means that whatever card he uses, he always has the same range. And the range is determined by, if you look on the card, just above the actual picture, on the left under the name, there is a little grid, like a 3x3 grid, and the lit up square indicates the square that he can attack. In addition, he also gets bonus experience if he destroys any opponent with a single attack. And each character has different abilities. So you got, as I've said, you've got one character for each character class for each side. So for the hero side, we've got Silpher for Hugh Newell. We have Kranz for Remar. We have Inolis for Formal. Calrelia for Remal. Viviana for Full Newell. Tefu for Hughcast. Relmitos for Formar. You might recognise Relmitos if you've played Blue Burst as well, because there is a quest that features him and one of the other characters from episode 3. It's kind of like an episode 3 prelude quest. I believe the quest was called Blue Star Memories. Then we've got Orland for Humor, Guy Killed for Raycast, Saligun for Hucasil, Stella for Raycasil, Blue Star for Phonium. And then we move on to the dark side characters. So those ones I've just covered are the ones that use all of the actual PSO hunter gear. So they use weapons, mags, things like that. And the dark side, so these are the ones that use the actual enemies. So we have Break, which is the other character that appears in Blue Star Memories, who's the dark side for Ma. We have Lura, Casil, sorry. We have Endu, who is the Humar. KC, who is the Raymar. Memoru, who's the For Newell. Rafina, who's the Hugh Newell. Rio, who is the Raymal. Hiko or Peko, who is the Phonium. Pies, who is the Hucast. Reyes, who's the Hucasil. Krenu, who is the Formal. And Orgun, who's the Raycast. So you can choose all of these, and again, all of these have different abilities. So for example, Krenu, for example, has an ability where every creature within 1 block of her, excluding herself, will heal by 1 every turn. So that's your first thing, choosing your character. So let's, for example, let's choose, just for a basic one, let's choose, if we go back, what I'll do is I'll show you a completed deck, because the next stage is actually building the cards of the deck. So if we go into, let's see what we've got. Yeah, so if I go into this AI Meltdown deck here. So this is a deck that focuses on highs as the main character, so he's a dark side. And this deck is focused around using machines. So we have a few different types of cards. So first thing you've got, it'll show you cards that you can use. So each deck is 30 cards, and it will only show you cards that you're able to use. So you can see, because we're using a dark side character here, we've got the actual monster cards. So you can see, much like the character cards, each of the cards has their own abilities, their own health, attack power, movement, and so on. And again, they have their own ranges and abilities. And they go from very basic ones like a Boomer. So a Boomer, obviously 5 health, 3 attack, can move 3 spaces, and has no abilities. The other thing that I need to point out is, just above the artwork of the monster, there is a little grid with up to 7 dots on it. And the number of lit dots, this is the level of the card. So the way it works is, when you're summoning a monster, you need to have a dice roll equal to or above the level you want to summon. So it means that the more powerful the monster is, or the more powerful the equipment is, typically the higher level it will have, and the harder it'll be to actually roll enough dice to get that on. So for example, a Boomer is level 2, which is really easy to bring on. But something like a Hilda Blue, for example, is 5, which is fairly difficult. And it goes right up to... Do I have any level 7s? I think I do. Yeah, so we also have things like Epsilon, which is 7. So this is nearly impossible to bring on. But is extremely strong if you can bring it on. As you might have noticed as well, each of the cards also has a rarity. So on the little thumbnails, you can see, so for Boomer, for example, it says N4. So the way the rarity works is you have normal cards, rare cards, S cards, SS cards, and there's some event cards as well, which are special ones you can't actually get in packs normally. So, and for each of these, so for normal cards, you've got N4, N3, N2, N1 in order of ascending rarity. So, for example, this Boomer is N4, which is the most common. This Giga Boomer is N3, which is slightly rarer. Then we have R, which are rare cards, and again, they go R4, R3, R2, R1. So again, this Tolor is R3. But this Dubchik, for example, is R1. And then we have S and SS, which are very, very rare cards, and you probably won't see many of them. So I only have a couple of them. So I have Epsilon, which is a double S. Do I have any others? I've also got Chaos Bringer, which is S. And there's also some special variants of cards called Plus cards. So I've got this one, which is Chaos Bringer Plus, and this is a double S. And these will have totally different abilities to the base cards. Next up, we have attack and defense cards. So these have different modifiers to your AP. So if you, for example, if you're attacking and you use this attack card, it says AP +1. So if your AP is 3 and you use this card, you'll do 4 damage. You can also adjust your range as well. So cards like Slash, you can see just above the artwork, it has 3 spaces lit up. So this means that it attacks the 3 squares in front of you at +2 AP. Then, as I've mentioned, we also have defense cards. So we also have technique cards as well, which work kind of similar to attack cards. Then we've got some of the defense cards. So guard, for example, you use this if a monster attacks you, or if a hunter attacks you, and it says HP +4. So what this does, say if an enemy is going to do 4 damage to you, if you use this card, it'll do 0. If an enemy is going to do 8 damage to you and you use this card, it'll do 4 damage. So it basically reduces the damage by 4, essentially. There's also what are called assist cards as well, and these just have varying effects. So there's assist cards like Dice +1, which will just increase your dice rolls by 1 while it's active. You know, there are other cards as well. So, for example, Cave Wind, for example, this will buff all Altered Beast monsters for a few turns. So there's quite a bit to it. It is actually quite an in-depth process building a deck. So if we look at this deck, this again is a machine-focused one. You can see, obviously, we've got no native or air-based monsters in. So we're all in machine. So we've got a couple of dub chicks in the deck. And the reason for this is because these have an ability called Guard Creature. And what this allows you to do is, while this guy's on the field, basically, any attacks on your character will get transferred to this guy instead. And that's vital because if your main character gets reduced to 0 HP, you lose. And the way it works is, for hunter side characters, they can shield themselves by using different equipment. So if a hunter, for example, had a sword and a shield equipped, you'd have to break the sword and the shield before you can do any damage to them. With Ark's characters, though, they can't equip anything to themselves. They can only put monsters on the field. So typically you'll try and block hunters off to try and prevent them from getting to you, or you use guard creatures to divert the damage somewhere else instead. That's roughly how the deck system works. Obviously, we haven't changed anything there. So what I'll do is I'll go into a battle now, and I'll kind of show you how the game actually works in battle. And you'll see how massively different this game is to episode 1 and 2. So first thing is, we'll choose a map. So we'll go to Tower of Caelum because it's absolutely banging music. And we'll go with, regular rules. You can play with up to 4 players in this as well. So you can do 2v2 if you want to. And you can actually do it all on... I know that you can do 2 player on 1 controller, and you can do, I think, 4 player on 2 controllers. And the idea is you just pass the control to the other person when it's their turn. So we'll use... Should we use this deck? Yeah, we'll try using the AI deck and just see how we go. And on the other team, we'll fight against... We'll try going against a hunter. We'll go against Crans. So you'll see very, very quickly that this is a completely different game to episode 1 and 2. I'll just put my camera on now. But it was a very, very ambitious move by Sega when this released to completely change the fundamentals of how PSO played. As I said, it did kind of backfire because a lot of people didn't like the idea of it changing, which might be why Blue Burst went back to more regular PSO. Okay, so he's going first. You can see we've got a little grid set out on the screen. So first thing is we get to check our hand. So we want a variety of monsters and a defense card. So we've got guard. We've got wall, which is another defense card. We've got our dub chick. We've got Sinnoh beat, and we've got a high level card as well. So that for me is fine.
Start.
The first thing is he will roll a dice, and that determines what monsters he can set or what gear he can equip. He's equipped a shot and another shot. That's all of his attack dice spent now, so he can't move or anything now.
Change dice.
So now we roll. And we get a pretty good roll. So first thing I might do is bring out my guard creature. And we'll set it right over here, because it doesn't matter if he attacks me directly, because the damage will go on the guard creature. And we could also bring a Sinnoh beat out. This would reduce us to 0 attack dice left. The Sinnoh beats are an interesting monster, so they're very, very weak and they don't really do much damage. But they're double strike, so they hit twice. And also, while you've got one on the field, you can summon more for no action points. Now, at the moment, we've only got one in our hands, so it feels kind of pointless bringing it on. And we have guard cards as well, so I don't think I'm moving that. I want to see what he does first. Now, highs his ability as well. First of all, he has anti-abnormality, so because he's an android, which are referred to as humanoids in this game, because that he can't suffer any negative statuses. And he also has AP assist, which means that any ally within one block of him gains 1 AP. But the downside is because he's an android, he can't use any techs.
Action.
Yeah, so we'll just call it there for now. And at the end of the turn, we draw again. So we do have a couple. We've probably got slightly too many defense cards in our hands, so I'll probably want to ditch some of those. So you might be thinking at this point, how the hell do you actually do damage to the hunter characters? So the way this works basically is every time you destroy a piece of gear on a hunter character, the character loses 1 HP. So he's doing 3 damage to me there, so I'm just going to use wall to stop that. So it'll miss. Because obviously, a lot of damage is going on this guy. I don't really want him to die because he is protecting my story character. Okay, so we've got a nice roll there. So now this is huge. So we've actually drawn Mind Brightness. So what this is, it's an assist card. And for 4 turns, all machine creatures gain 2 AP on the field. Which obviously is huge for this deck because the entire deck is machine creatures. Now, you might be wondering why I can't bring on the Sinnoh Zella. And the reason for that is because you have a limited number of summon options. So I think you're limited to level 7 overall. It's either 7 or 8 that you're limited to. And because the dub chick costs 3, I can't bring the Sinnoh Zella on. So for now, there's really no harm in I may as well just bring the Sinnoh beat on. It's probably going to get killed. But I think we should use the Sinnoh beat along with the Mind Brightness because we've rolled big. Because it's a low-cost monster, I can bring it on really far forward. So we're also going to use Mind Brightness. That buffs the Sinnoh. And we're going to attack with the Sinnoh. And then we get an option of what we want to attack. So normally the Sinnoh does 1 damage, but it double strikes, so it does 2. But we've got an increase, so I think it will do 6 because it'll hit twice. So we'll try and destroy. So I'm in rifle range of him there potentially. So I'm going to try and take his rifle out first.
Defense.
It's doing 3, but it will double strike. So it destroys it. And because we destroyed that card, Franz loses 1 HP. So I am going to hold on to the Zilla because it is a very good card, just in case I get enough points to bring it on. Okay, so we've drawn a Guild Chick and another Mind Brightness. He's probably going to try and destroy the Sinnoh.
Defense.
Yeah, so he is going to destroy it there regardless, because even if I dodge that, it's going to do 4 damage. So this would reduce it to 2. The reason I can't use my guard card is because I've only got a defense dice of 1, and I need 2 to use guard. So there's no point me using dodge there because it's going to destroy the Sinnoh regardless. Now, I don't lose HP for losing monsters, and that's because he can deal damage to me directly by attacking my character. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the Guild Chick on. Now, the downside is I'm probably not going to be able to attack him this turn because the Guild Chick costs 3 to bring on. It's going to reduce it to 1 by bringing this on, and then to move it forward would cost another space. However, the Guild Chick does have 7 HP, so it is a little bit more sturdy than some of the other monsters. And we have got 3 defense dice as well, so we can defend a little bit as well. And I might ditch this other Mind Brightness for now, just because I don't think we're going to use it for now.
Change. Defense.
So he's doing 4 damage, so I am going to guard that. So we're not doing too great for the defense dice. Now, what I'm going to do here is, I do have a card here called Dice +1. Now, the problem is, I still have Mind Brightness active at the minute. I can use this on Kranz if I want to, because this will affect both of us anyway. So this basically adds 1 to all your dice rolls. The downside is it does add 1 to all your opponent's dice rolls as well. I've just realized we have actually drawn Epsilon as well. So I am going to hold on to Dice +1 because obviously you can't roll 7 on a 6-sided dice. So you need Dice +1 or a dice bonus another way to actually bring Epsilon on. So for now, I'm going to just skip and go to this. And what I might actually do is, because we've got the guard creature on, I might actually bring in Eyes actually. Because what's Eyes' damage? He has 4 AP, which is big. And he attacks, I believe, square in front of him and the square to his left as well. Okay.
Action.
So what we're going to do is we'll use highs and we will attack one of his shots. He might use a guard card, and then we'll use the Guild Chick as well.
Defense.
Okay, so he's not defending it. So we destroyed his shot, so again he loses 1 HP. And then the Guild Chick's going to take care of the other one as well. So I'm guessing he hasn't drawn many guard cards. So we are wearing him down slowly. So now what he needs is, he needs a big roll now to get some gear equipped. Otherwise, we're just going to start beating him up. So now what I'm going to do, because I've got 2 big high-cost cards in my hand, I am going to drop the Sinnoh. Because out of the 2, I'd rather bring Epsilon on if I can. I probably won't be able to, because it is very hard to bring on. But so we'll ditch Sinnoh. It'd be nice to draw 1 more guard card, really. That works. Okay, so he's brought on a LK-14 combat. I think that cost him all of his action points to bring on, though.
Dice.
Again, the dub chick's just going to stay chilling in the corner for now. Yeah, we got a terrible roll. Now, I might use dice +1. Actually, no, I'm not going to because I've only got 2 AP. I'm going to use both my field characters to attack.
Action.
It's got 6 HP, hasn't it? So we can probably destroy the LK-14s, potentially. He has only rolled 1 on his defense dice as well. But we're probably just going to do a little bit of damage to him this turn.
Defense.
Then High should take care of this. So that's the LK-14 destroyed. So again, he loses 1 HP. And we get what's called a dice bonus. So this is a +1 dice for us now. And it's a reward for destroying a certain amount of cards. Now, this protect card is no good for single player because you can only use it on your ally. So I am going to ditch this. That obviously wouldn't be in the deck normally. And we've got an attack 6. So attack 6 is quite an interesting card. It just makes you do 6 damage. So again, he hasn't rolled too well there. He's brought a shot out. I'm guessing he's going to use the 1 AP to attack as well.
Defense.
So the dub chick's going to take a little bit of damage here. But I am going to use... Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to let that go through. Because I think dub chicks automatically heal. Yeah. So dub chicks have an ability, much like in PSO, where they can regenerate. So as long as they're not killed, they can regen to full HP at the end of the turn.
Set.
So you can see we got a bonus there. So we originally rolled 4 and 1, and that's gone up to 5 and 2. Now, at the minute, there's no point using this, really, because I can't bring Epsilon on anyway at the moment because we've got too much on the field. But I'm just going to stay where I am, actually, and just lay some attacks in here. So, what we're going to do here is... Let's look at this. So on these cards, what you'll notice is the different coloured bars next to the artwork. And these are ways you can link cards together. So if you've got one card that has an orange bar on its right, and then next another card with an orange bar on its left, it means you can link them together and combine the effects. Now I can't do it with these because they're both on the same side. So this guy does 4. So we can't use attack cards with the guild chick anyway. It's one of its downsides. So what we'll do is we will attack with the guild chick normally. And then with highs, so this is called heavy attack. Costs 3 to use, but we've got the AP to use it. And it adds 5 to our attack. So what I'm hoping here is that the guild chick destroys the shot. And then highs is going to do a ton of damage to Crans. So we'll do heavy attack with highs.
Defense.
It looks like it's going to go through. Yep, so we take care of the shot with that. Now he has no gear equipped. So now we're going to hit 9 damage to him, which should be the end of things. Yep. And that wraps it up, because when Crans reaches 0, that's it. Game over. So at the end of the match, you get a rank, and that's based on how much damage you did, how many turns it took, how much damage you received. That's kind of a rundown of how a typical battle works in episode 3. And the entire story is like that as well, so all of the story missions are card battles. So then what happens is, after a battle, it gives you a rough rundown of the different stats that are involved. And then, crucially, you get pack openings. So you just choose one pack. I think there is a slight difference between these, which one So I think some of them are slightly more creature chance, some are slightly more item chance, but there's not much difference. So what I'll do is we'll open this one. And we'll see what we get. So we've got Zonda. Sting Tip. So these are all really common cards so far. Birdish, which is actually a new card. Yep, an R2. Barrier, which is terrible. A Mag, which is terrible. Oh. Yeah, so this is another thing that can happen in episode 3. Occasionally cards can actually change into other cards. And it normally happens if you've got a lot of a specific card. So it's trying again here. Oh, cool. So that C.A.R.D card is actually changed into a Samba Maracas, which I actually needed. So it's kind of a cool thing that they put in the game. So you will get a lot of the same common cards over and over again. So the way the game compensates you for that is the more of them you get, the more chance you have of them transforming into something else. So I'm actually curious to see what this Birdish is like, actually, because I don't actually have it. So it's really strong, actually. It's humanoid only, which makes sense because that's how it was in PSO. So after an attacking with this item, the equipper loses 2 experience. That's fine. During defense, this card blocks all attacks of 3 or less damage. Yeah, that's really good. And then the Samba Maracas are very, very weak. So ally bonus. During a physical attack, damage you inflict temporarily increases by half the number of your own team's field characters, items, or creatures. So it gets buffed. Basically, if you've got a lot of things equipped, this will get stronger. And then as Feeble, AP of the story character equipping this card becomes 0. That's terrible. That's really bad. Yes, so it basically gets an attack bonus depending on other stuff you got equipped, but then it also reduces your field character's attack to 0. So it's giving you a buff and a nerf at the same time. So yeah, I don't think I'll be using that. I should point out as well that in multiplayer, the player who loses also gets cards as well. They just get less. They'll get a cut, like I put 2 or 3 cards. So even if you lose, you still have a chance of getting cards. So that is a very rough breakdown of how episode 3 works. As I say, it's a very, very strange game, really. For several reasons. One, the obvious gameplay shift to a card game, completely different to everything before it. And then the other main weird decision that Sega made with this game is that it was only on the GameCube. Despite the fact that episode 1 and 2, which had just released before, it was on GameCube and Xbox. For some reason, they just never released an Xbox version of this game. It was only ever a GameCube exclusive, which now actually makes it quite difficult to find. I picked one up a few years back, and it cost more than I would like. But it's just a strange, like, weirdly niche game. Even for Phantasy Star Online, which is already quite niche as it is, episode 3 is kind of it's like the black sheep of the family, really. It is it's almost a completely forgotten about game, to be honest. A lot of people just do not remember this game at all. And it's kind of a shame, really, because I do feel like it holds up reasonably well. As a collectible, if you look at it from the perspective of a collectible card game, it is actually really, really fun. You know, the way that the actual card battles work, it's well thought out. The balancing seems reasonably good for the most part. There are a couple of cards that are a bit broken, but generally it seems not too bad. The story is actually really interesting, and actually gets really difficult later on as well. And generally, it was a really, really fun game. And I think the only reason that it really failed is just because people wanted more PSO sub 1 and 2, basically. And people wanted to, run through areas and find rares like they had in episode 1 and 2. People didn't really want to be playing a card game. Which is kind of funny now, because now if we look back, now we've got plenty of collectible card games that are really, really popular. You had games like Hearthstone and so on, which are massively popular. I just kind of wonder sometimes that if this game had released years later, would it have been more popular? Maybe. It was almost ahead of its time to an extent. And I think ultimately that backfired and meant that it just didn't sell well at all. It didn't sell well, and as we know, for episode 4 for Blue Burst, Sega had went back to regular sort of PSO gameplay. Now, I imagine that episode 3 and 4 were probably in development at about the same time because they did release quite soon after each other. But as we know, like when people think of PSO, they think of, you know, episode 1, episode 2, episode 4, the original Dreamcast game. This game never really gets mentioned. And I think ultimately it is just because it was so different and such a foreign concept for PSO, really. So, would I recommend playing this now? If you have a GameCube and you can get hold of the game, by all means, check it out. It's, you know, the story is actually quite a decent length. It's got 2 sides to it as well. So there is a Hunter side story and the Dark side story. So it does take a little while to actually get through. There are tons and tons of cards. I believe. So there are 350 types of cards in the game. So you will be there a while trying to get them all because some of them are very hard to get. So there's a massive collectability factor to it, which I guess is like the equivalent of this game's rare hunting in PSO episode 1 and 2. It is really fun to play, and it is just a different experience, really. And if you do want to experience the full sort of Phantasy Star Online story, you do kind of need to check this out as well. So yeah, I probably would recommend checking it out. It might not be a game you spend a lot of time with. You might just want to do a run through of story and then never play it again. But I think it is definitely worth checking out, and it's a shame that it has been forgotten so much. So I think for now I'll end this video there. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at PSO episode 3, and for people who have never seen it before, I hope it's been, you know, a bit of an eye-opening video to show you the risks that Sega took with the franchise. I'll end this one there though. If you've got any questions or anything in the comments, just drop them below. I will answer what I can. If you want to see more episode 3 stuff as well, just let me know. I realise it's probably not for everyone. I just wanted to do a video just to get this on the channel so that people can see it if they've never seen it before. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider liking or subscribing. It does help the channel out a lot. I really, really appreciate all the subscribers I've had recently as well. I'll end it there, and we'll see you guys in the next video.